Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're talking about Nintendo Switch, N64, Atari, and more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about Nintendo Switch emulation on Android with Skyline, and Skyline has been on fire lately. They got a brand new update today, actually 2 of them, 4 of them. If you head to Skyline-emu.1 and click on download, you'll see the brand new versions here. Version 1870 released, and so did version 1871, and this is the free mainline build. So version 1871 is the one you want to pick up here. It should have some bug fixes, some possible performance improvements, and it should fix some textures in Bayonetta 3. And the paid testing early access version of Skyline, Skyline Edge, also got a couple of updates today, version 34 and version 36. If you've got a Mali GPU, you are really going to like these updates. It increases performance up to 1.75 times, and that is a huge amount. And as for Edge 36, it does fix a crash on Breath of the Wild for Mali GPUs, and I did notice a difference between Edge 34 and Edge 36 playing Breath of the Wild. On Edge 34 it crashed right away, and on Edge 36 it didn't. This person had Super Mario Odyssey up and running on a Google Pixel 7 Pro between 40 to 60 frames per second, and looking really good. This person has Smash Brothers up and running on a Mali GPU between 20 to 60 frames per second and looking great. For a Mali GPU, this is very impressive. Breath of the Wild is still funky on a Mali GPU, but it is crashing less. Additionally, for Mali, Link's Awakening is looking a lot better and also performing better, close to 30 frames per second. And here's Diablo 3 up and running on Mali. When this person isn't recording, they're getting a stable 55 to 60 frames per second, which is great. And now they just have to solve for rendering. And this person with their massive wall of text has Fire Emblem Engage up and running and looking very good with their Snapdragon CPU. Performance here is very impressive. And finally, check out Bayonetta 3 on a Snapdragon CPU. It is running really well and looking really well. And speaking about looking good, next up we're talking about Atari Jaguar and Atari JaguarCD emulation with BigPEmu, and BigPEmu just got a couple of updates. So version 1.051 and version 1.052 have released, and you'll want to pick up version 1.052. Version 1.051 brings about some minor timing fixes, which might mean improved accuracy. Version 1.052 adds in a sample scale option for the system audio disc. And there's also some minor timing fixes to the minor timing fixes. Next up, and still talking about Atari here, but going back a few generations and talking about the Atari 2600. And Gopher 26 just got a brand new update. The last update for Gopher 2600 was back in October, and version 0.20.0 has just released. There's a bunch of bug fixes here and some minor improvements, including the mouse pointer disappearing when not in use. Moving on, and we're talking about Xbox emulation with Cxbx-Reloaded, and Cxbx-Reloaded just got a couple of brand new updates here. Version CI 111728F and version CI CE05EA1 have just released. Anyways, in the first one here, it avoids region patching loaded titles, which could break some games. And in the second one, it fixes a false positive when the game is still running or stopped. Cxbx-Reloaded is 100% free, it's open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Feel free to check it out. And for those of you wondering about Rosie's cameos, she only makes it into the video when she comes by when I'm recording and wants to be picked up. Otherwise, I just let her sleep. And speaking about sleep, next up we're talking about someone who might not actually be sleeping a whole lot considering this emulator is extremely active. We're talking about N64 emulation with RMG, where RMG stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Rosalie's Mupen GUI, depending on how you want to interpret it. We've got a brand new update. Version 0.3.3 has some fixes and some input tweaks, and version 0.3.4, which just released, has a whole bunch of fixes and some more input tweaks. And speaking about fixes and tweaks, next up we're talking about N64 emulation still with Simple64, and Simple64 just got a couple of brand new updates. So version 2023.02.1 has an update for ParaLLel RDP, and version 2023.02.2 has a small fix for ParaLLel RDP and AMD GPUs. And not to be left out here, we're switching over to Android, but still talking about N64 emulation and still talking about a fork of Mupen. M64 Plus F said just got a brand new update. This update isn't huge, but if you were getting a black screen when you're trying to use Netplay, this update should hopefully fix it. It fixes the black screen when trying to use Netplay on some devices. Moving on, and we're talking about a free and open source command line interface ROM organizer, oxyROMon, and oxyROMon version 0.15.0 just released. In this version, when you're importing ROMs, it'll only ask for a system when desired or when necessary, and there's also an interesting performance improvement. The Rebuild ROMs feature, which is meant for rebuilding arcade ROM sets, is a heck of a lot faster. And last up here, we're talking about Arch-based Linux distribution EndeavourOS, which just got a couple of brand new releases. If you are curious about this one, I will drop a link to the release article in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. The Cassini Neo ISO bumps up the Linux kernel from 6.0 to 6.1 LTS, and there's also a fix here for slower machines during installation. And for the ARM version of Endeavour, there's now 3 different ways to install it. Method 1, you can use the EndeavourOS Live ISO to install the image. Method 2, you can download a script and use that to install the image. And method 3, you can download the image to be installed with the Raspberry Pi imager. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.